So October 3rd is voting day in Quebec. The nomination period for candidates to register opened on August 30th and will close on September 17th. The campaign period, which is taking place now and will last until October 3rd. There are 27 registered political parties who are authorized in Quebec to participate. And today I'm joined with Pierre Chénier, candidate and leader of the Parti marxiste-léniniste du Québec, or PMLQ. The PMLQ is fielding 12 candidates, all in different parts of Quebec and from various sectors of the economy. Hi, Pierre. Thanks for joining me today.
Hello, and greeting all your listeners. It's very exciting that I come here to talk to you, and we follow closely the fight in Ontario that you wage also with Empower Yourself now. It's very important. Actually, it is one total fight of the working class and people. So to be here to communicate, it's a real pleasure.
Great, thanks. So in the Quebec election, similar to that of Ontario, that's taking place. One of the things that was taking place as we're coming out of the pandemic were that there's serious problems that were identified and especially highlighted in education, in healthcare, and in society as a whole. Can you talk a little bit about what the people of Quebec are facing at this time?
Yes, as you know, and the situation is very similar in Ontario, this government, and I'm not saying that the other government would have acted differently, that Legault is but they are the ones who were there. They have managed the healthcare system for 2 years and a half with what we call in French, arrêté ministériel, ministerial decrees, not even government decrees, ministerial decrees, because they say that la loi sur la santé, the law about the healthcare in Quebec, gives them this power of decree health emergency for 2 years and a half, and it's still going on because they have lifted the emergency, but they have not lifted the emergency ministerial decrees. They carry on till the end of the year, and they say very clearly, whether they say or not, it's impunity, that they can extend them the way they want. So in these the ministerial decrees, they give themselves the power to change at will all the negotiated conditions of the healthcare workers, all of them. And it's not just a piece of paper, they did it. And they say to the administration, you want to increase their mobility, you want to change their vacation, force mandatory overtime, because there is an emergency, you can do it. And in the ministerial decree, it is written, the ministers cannot be sued by anybody because they are acting in good faith. It's absolute power. And this, I don't have the number exactly. I think they renewed it 150 times without even going to the parliament, to the National Assembly. They just say, we extend it. So these unilateral changes, they were extended. But now they're talking about shortage of labor in healthcare system. Yes, there is a shortage of labor, but they've created it with not only the Legault government, with the wrecking they have done for at least until, you can say, the mid-1990s, to wreck the healthcare system. They have created that shortage. A few features of it is that the healthcare professional, the holiday care, have become sick, had to leave. They've resigned. They went to the private sector. They were pushed there. So of course there is a shortage. But the shortage not only was created, but it's not only because of the untenable working conditions. It is because of the assault on the dignity of the worker, of the healthcare workers, who all through this pandemic, they saved our lives. They provided the service at the risk of their own safety. And when they leave, they say it's because of this lack of respect that our voice is not being heard. And I'm happy to inform you that during these 2 years and a half, there were tens of sit-ins of nurses and orderlies right there in the hospital during the shift, saying untenable, untenable. And they were suspended many times. And they were, the nurses, they blocked bridges across Quebec. The healthcare paramedics, they went on strike for months and months and months during the pandemic to say we cannot continue with this, that there is no staff in the hospitals, and instead of me saving lives, I have to stay there with my civière, with the person in the hallway. This is unhuman. And of course, they provided all the services, but not the administrative services. Mm-hmm. For months and months and months, they fought. And now today, we have a case. We are working very closely with healthcare workers. The biggest association of nurses, which is called the FIC, Fédération Interprofessionnelle de la Santé, there are others. They have said, okay, enough of that. We are asking for a legislation about safe ratios all across Quebec. Not pilot project that lasts a month or two. Mm-hmm. Not that we have to fight like hell to have it in the collective agreement, which may be canceled anytime, but a law for Quebec, safe ratios. And they are presenting very interesting proposals because with this, they are addressing two of the most important problems of the system, retention and attraction. Why retention? Because if you have a humane work shift on which you've had some decision-making, because you decided the content of the law, what should be the ratio, who is going to decide that if not the healthcare workers themselves? So they will be not pressed upon, they will feel like staying. And then there will be a power of attraction, because who wants to go in the healthcare system now? And people still go because they are heroic. But you cannot run a system just based on that. Mm-hmm. So they will be attracted to say, well, if there is a basis that you cannot do whatever you want with me, I am a human person, I have a human dignity, a professional dignity, then I'll come back. But that's not what the government is doing. Basically, what they have done is they say premiums. We'll give you a premiums if you come back, if you become full-time, but you still don't control your conditions. Mm-hmm. And more than that, in the premiums, they've put conditions that are in violation of the collective agreements, which is, for example, I don't have to go too much in detail, but that if you miss work, well, you have to refund part of the premium. You're not supposed to miss work. You have to do this, that. This is solving the problem. This is giving a voice to those who are saving people's lives. It is not. So when we say democratic renewal, you can see there is an emergency there. It's not just something in a program that you put somewhere. It is really a matter of life and death. We say fighting for rights is what saves lives. Mm-hmm. So that's, I would say, that is one of the most telling examples I have about how serious is the situation.
And I think I think it's really important that the PMLQ is raising these things, because as you mentioned, how people have been pushed aside, right? Yes. So where is the space to raise these things? And even like you're talking about on the ground, all these, say, nurses and people who are working in the hospital, they've left. They've left not necessarily because they wanted to, but because what choice did they have? Some
of them, yeah, the thousands of them.
Right. And obviously you also have people who are really saying like, no, I am not going to allow this. There's a line in the sand and we're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep seeing what to do. So I think that's great that.
Well, one of the things that the people say is that I cannot pretend that we are offering services when we do not have what it takes to provide the services. Mm-hmm. So they don't just leave, they express themselves. Mm-hmm. And also we put that in our press and all this. It contributes to create a public opinion that we have to exercise control. The system is out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And then what is their solution? More privatization. Doug Ford says it so openly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The good thing about him is that he says this very clearly. He said, yeah, of course, private.
Mm-hmm.
In Quebec, they say, well, private sector is not the devil. So what does that supposed to mean?
Right. Or this issue that all they have is money, that they can just give money. They're not actually trying to address the real conditions that people are facing, or giving people more control or power over their working conditions.
They pay millions and millions of dollars to the private agencies, way more than they pay the nurses.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an example what we mean by the voice, having our voice heard based on our interests, our needs, our rights, the rights of all, the rights of the patient. This is the fight. And the election is not organized to give you that voice. That is something that many people can agree with. Mm-hmm. You watch TV and you say, what the hell is that? Mm-hmm. In brief.
Right. And I think that kind of goes into my second question, which was many posts on your party's Facebook page, which people can find at Parti marxiste-léniniste du Québec, if you'd like to follow that on Facebook. They're raising this issue of people's empowerment from the standpoint that everyone should speak in their own name and not give up their voices by electing someone who, as it said, will represent them.
Yes.
It seems that this is the main theme, and you kind of elaborated it a bit, but maybe you can talk about it in terms of your party's platform in this particular Quebec election.
Well, the platform generally is called for democratic renewal. What does it mean? We think that it is very important that workers, peoples, women, youth, First Nation, they speak in their own name. And we are instrumental in this happening through our Zooms, because we're having many Zooms during this campaign, but we have Zooms all the time. We do a lot of interview, including myself. I do a lot of interviews with workers in Quebec, workers across Canada, where they present their views, how they see the problem themselves, how they see solutions to these problems. They share experience with others in a very informative way. And in that process, they gain confidence in themselves that they can present sensible views. And then we can discuss, how do we present these views to the public opinion? How do we become influential? How do we change the process? But it starts, in a way of speaking, an important thing is the independent voice in the concrete way, through forms of it. And these Zooms, these interviews, these reporting, when workers, they speak themselves about their problems, is an integral part, very critical part, especially in these elections, where they say, okay, you have 5 parties, that's all you've got. The small parties, they don't exist. We are small parties. And the citizens of because you have to be a citizen to vote, they're called tiers, third parties. They cannot speak on their own. If they want to speak, they have to be, besides a few exceptions, if they want, let's say citizens want to speak about something that is about the elections and all this, they have to be authorized by an official agent of a candidate or a party. Why is that? How can you be a citizen of a membership politics and you're considered outside of it? Mm-hmm. While these parties, they are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they say your task is make a choice between them. Why not making a choice in ourselves, like you did in Ontario? That we have a choice, which is we speak out, we know the problems, but this is, and we are saying to the people too, this is empowering you in the real sense of the word, because we consider the workers as thinking workers, the youth as thinking youth, the women as thinking women, so that we put their voice in our press, in the public opinion, and that is empowering themselves. because they see that we don't use their voice. We present it as is. We present the real conditions of life and conditions of work, real opinions. And in this, and we gather people to join us. And in this, we are changing. It's a condition to change the process. Absolutely. I think so.
Yeah. And I think that issue that you raise, this idea, even not only of choice, but also like this pro-con. Well, when you just want to raise something, right? You just want to talk about, say, your condition, or you want to try to together find out solutions.
Yes.
The system really sets it up. We're like, okay, well, what are you for or against it? Okay, set yourself up. Okay, that's your team. And then you're just supposed to stay on that side and not engage with the other side. And then you vote, and then whoever wins, and it doesn't resolve any problems. And in fact, it's showing more and more that not only do these governments who just are looking for power, or people who just, don't have a space to express themselves, it's just getting worse. These problems are getting worse, the problems of empowerment.
Yes, they're getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the important process to enable people to become decision makers in all the affairs that concern them.
Mm-hmm.
So a process of discussion, of conversation, of affirmation, of all these things, and of course, resistance struggles. PMLQ is of all of these things. But in all this, we're trying to create a space so that this voice is there, is presented, can grow, and it is ours. It is our work. Mm-hmm. So this is really, this is the way to change things. Mm-hmm. Our whole experience shows that things don't change.
What does the PMLQ hope to achieve in this election?
Well, we want people to vote for PMLQ mm-hmm. because this is a sign that you're looking to a change that will be favorable to the people, to the empowerment of the people. It is a sign of a change that is real in terms that that will favor the people. But of course, one of the things too is to extend our links with the workers, the youth, the women, the First Nations across Quebec by involving them in participating with us. And in our Zooms, of course, we convene them, we also speak, but people say whatever they want. This is there. There was one this weekend, and it was very interesting that people speak. They say, my concern is this. My concern is this. And I see this way that we can solve. This is not only refreshing, but yes, I don't mind saying it is refreshing, but it is much needed so that we can exercise some control. So at least we control our conversation, our discussion, our stance. Is it not?
Absolutely. And especially when, like you were talking about, how in the elections, there isn't that space. So
No.
It's up to us to make those spaces so people can put, their issues on the agenda and people can talk about them together.
Yes. And feel proud of it and feel that they are respected mm-hmm. and gain that confidence that, yes, I spoke. And then we are going to have more interviews coming and say, okay, how do you see a solution to that? Like the fake, how do you see, what would that law do to mm-hmm. Quebec? How come it's not discussed? You watch TV for, I don't know, it's been 16 days now. Nobody has raised that, well, healthcare workers, they have solution. Don't we have to talk to them? No, five chiefs. Mm-hmm. How can you solve a problem like this? You cannot. Mm-hmm. People, we are going to solve that problem by this work.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's definitely needed, and so we appreciate everyone putting themselves.
I would say that
raising that absolutely
in many places.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we saw in the Ontario election on June 2nd was that Elections Ontario provided all kinds of opportunities for people and ways for people to vote. We talked about, this issue of participation. So electors could vote day of the campaign, every single day in different ways. But in fact, Ontario had its lowest voter turnout in history during the election. And so it seems like the same trend is taking place in Quebec. One of the slogans of Elections Quebec is calling on people to, quote, reverse the trend by voting. So reverse the non-voting trend by voting. How do you think that this idea of getting people to vote, just getting people to the polls, that this is going to address these problems that the PMLQ?
It's not going to solve anything. We know very well the Chief Electoral Officer of Quebec. He's doing all kinds of things. For example, and probably you have that in Ontario too. Let's say you're a student from Sept-Îles, but you study in Montreal. If there is a, how do you say, not polling station, when a voting station in your CEGEP, you can vote. You don't have to go back to, maybe, but you know, they do what they can, but they don't control the election law. So in terms of, is it like in 2018, what I can say is that all these processes were in place, and we had the lowest turnout participation rate since 2012. Not like Ontario, which was in the 40%, was it not?
43.
43. We had 61, but it was the lowest. So fine, they do various things, but the matter of content has to be put first. And of course they don't rule the election law. They abide by it. This absurdity about tiers, well, this was imposed by the National Assembly.
The third parties, right?
Yeah. Well, they don't call them, yeah, let's say third parties.
Okay,
yeah.
well, third, yeah, okay.
Third, you're a third of something. It's amazing. So if you are a third, why do you want them to vote if they have no voice? It was just that you can see where something is wrong there.
Absolutely. Well, I would encourage people to head over to your website, pmlq.qc.ca.
Yes, absolutely.
That out. It was just recently put up there, and that's fantastic. This interview covered many different places, but I think it all comes down to that central kernel, which is the fight for empowerment. And so congratulations on your participation and ongoing participation in the election. And thanks very much for joining me.
I return the congratulations to your own participation in the Ontario election and to the fact of your Empower Yourself Now, which is very, very interesting, and to the fight of all the Ontario workers, all the Canadian workers, all the Quebec workers. It is one fight. It is not divided according to ethnic lines. The issue of French is important, but has nothing to do with that. This is a fight of all, of membership, of members, of the political, of the body politics, for our rights, for a future, for all of us. Then we have a future, and we do have a future.
We do. It's ours to take.
This is a good way to end that. Thank you.
Thank you.